Now let's start simple with that thank you template. Currently, we're rendering it with this view function. And of course, that's a very lean, basic function. There's nothing wrong with that. We can absolutely leave that function as it is. But to dive into more class-based views, which you could use, I want to still convert this to a class-based view. So definitely try this on your own. We're going to do it together after a short pause, which you can use to pause the video. Were you successful? In the end, I just want to create a class and I'll name it ThankYouView. And I'll extend that base view class, which we're importing from Django views. And then we need to set the get method in there. This view doesn't have a post method because no post request will ever reach this view. Instead, we load that view with this URL here, and that will only be loaded once we redirect to that URL after successfully submitting our form here. So that will then always be a GET request, so just setting the GET method here is enough. And then in this GET method, we should return a response. And of course here, we can return our rendered template and then get rid of that thank you view function. Now for that, get gets self and request as arguments automatically by Django, as you learned. And with that, we can go to URLs py and replace views.thankyou like this with views.thankyouView.asView, just as we did it with the review view. Well, and with that, if we reload this thank you page, that still works. And of course, if I submit this form again, that also still works, and I get this thank you page. Now that's applying what we learned in the last course section. But if you have a view which primarily deals with showing some template, as we're doing it here, then you can absolutely inherit from view, add the get method, and return the rendered template there. But you can also use a different built-in view class Django gives you, a more specific view class specifically geared at this use case of returning a template. For this, we add a new import here, and from Django.views, we dive into generic.base, and from there we import the template view now. And that is also a view you can extend, just like this base view, but it's more specific. And it's specifically focused on allowing you to build view classes that render templates. So now we can use this imported template view and inherit that instead of just view. Now, when doing that, you don't define a get method here anymore. Instead, in that case here, we're focused on returning a template. That's why we use this template view. And therefore, what we gotta do here is set a template name property in this class. And that should then point at your template file, at the template you want to use. So in this case, reviews/thankyou HTML. So what we previously passed to the render method is now set as a template name. And this is not any random property name I came up with. This is an expected property name, as you could tell by the fact that I'm getting auto-completion here and that this is suggested here. Now Django will automatically take this template and return and render that if a GET request reaches this view. Hence, we don't need to change anything else. With that change made, if I reload the thank you URL, I still get that thank you template. And now we have an even leaner view where we don't need to add the get method and where we don't need to call render or anything like that. Instead, we just need to set the template name and Django will automatically return it for get requests that reach this view. Now, of course, you might have a template though, where you want to add some extra context. In this case, we don't have any extra context. Thank you is a static template with no dynamic content. But of course, theoretically, we could be outputting some dynamic content here. We could, for example, be expecting some message which we want to interpolate in our template. And that, of course, brings up the question how we would then pass such context data, such data that could be used in the template, to the template when using this template view. For this, there is a specific method which you can add to your view class when it inherits from the template view, like this one does. And that's the getContextData method. And you also see here that I'm getting autocompletion, which proves that this is one of the methods you can override. Now, if I hit tab here, this autocompletes even, which is very convenient. It gives me type annotations. I'll remove those since we haven't used types before here. But then I get this context data method here. Now, the idea here is that in this context data, getContextData method, you should return the context that is exposed to the template. So that dictionary of key value pairs, like we're doing it here for this render method up there, which should be exposed to this template. You also always should call super getContextData here, but you don't necessarily need to return a result of that. You just should make sure that it gets called so that the super getContextData method, so the method defined in the base template view, is executed. So what you can do, for example, is you can get the context from calling that super getContextData, which is then already a dictionary, though typically that, of course, will now be empty. And you can now add new keys to the dictionary. For example, here, we can add a message key to this context dictionary, because it is a message which I'm expecting in the template. And we can set this to any value we want, like this works. And let me use double quotes here as well, therefore. And then, in the end, we want to return this context. And that's how we now construct the context which will be exposed to the template. If we now save everything and reload, we see this works message in the template as well. So that's the more specific TemplateView base class, which allows you to write even less code than with just the view if your goal is to return a template for a GET request. You can then still enrich it with data, as you saw, but that is the purpose of this template view. And it's one of the built-in views you can use to make your life easier and to write less code.